I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family today. And to tell you a little bit about my family, I have to give you a little bit of a background story. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. I went to 3 different middle schools, I went to 3 different high schools, and to be honest with you, I was so good at making friends, within 2 days I would have you knowing my middle name and you would have met all of my family. I think this comes a little bit because I come from a large family. There was 8 of us at the dinner table every single night, and there was nothing I could do to avoid them. I mean, that's my younger brother, 6'7" for scale in that photo for you, next to my father. Now, my father had a little bit of an interesting background, and I didn't know that it was an interesting background until we moved to a more conservative community. I remember sitting at recess with my other 13-year-old friends, 2 girls, and someone's secret boyfriend because we're 13. Every boyfriend is a secret boyfriend when you're 13. And I had the longest hair at the time. One of the girls had decided to braid it, and the other girl, unbeknownst to me, is tying me to my chair. Lovingly, of course. "What are you doing this weekend, Emily?" somebody says. I said, translates to, "I'm going to the ice skating rink," but she didn't know that, so she yanked on the braid. That hurt, so I said, "I'm going to the ice skating rink." Now, no one knows that my father's a figure skater at this point because, quite frankly, I just hadn't told anybody yet. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I didn't want to have to come out, per se. "Is your dad gay?" someone said. No, my parents are married. They've been married and together for, 30 years, guys? Yeah? But what I learned from that conversation was that they didn't think that my dad could be a figure skater. It wasn't until later, when my dad had come to pick us up in my mother's Nissan Titan pickup truck, that somebody asked, "Mr. Brunda, are you a figure skater?" And he said, "Hell yeah, I was a figure skater, and I was jacked, too." This photograph is of my father and his pair skating partner, my Aunt Veronica. She's my godmother. Figure skating in pairs is quite unique. You are a unique partnership. He could throw her 30 feet in the air, 30 feet in the air. He could hold her on his shoulder, and she sat there like she was nothing. And I loved the athleticism of that. I became an athlete myself, a little bit more of a masculine athlete playing volleyball. But weightlifting and sports are how I bonded with my father. This wasn't absurd to me. The masculinity and femininity bounced around in my head like one continuous unit. My father and my mother go on manicure and pedicure dates. My father braids a tighter braid than my mom. Mom, I'm sorry. And to be honest, I never thought that anything here was unusual. I always thought that it was totally okay that my dad could do things like this. That's my father, blonde and curly at the age of, 16? And that's totally fine. My dad is one of my best friends. We're tighter than anything else. And he didn't have any problem with me pursuing masculine pursuits. My dad, it was made to be a dad, and that's just not saying something. My cousins have a single mom, and she is my aunt, she's my rock. But he was a dad for a whole family at the time. My dad and my brother are tight, they bond over Legos, but my dad and I bond over things like media. If you look at this photograph, I compiled a bunch of pictures of fathers that my father grew up with. These were the Ted Bundys of the world. They were the controlling, demanding fathers who demanded that they would be met with a martini at the door. This is the dad that my dad saw in media, and that didn't represent the dads at all to him. And to me, this is the dad that I saw in media. I saw a dad who was incapable of changing a diaper. I saw a dad who was incapable of conducting himself like a parent, always waiting on the wife to come around and fix something for him, or waiting on his parents to outsmart him in some way. Why wasn't the way I'd grown up normal? Why wasn't it shown in media? That was so odd to me, that why wasn't there such a cool dad who was totally willing to sit in the parking lot of a volleyball club waiting for his daughter to get out so he could tell her that, "Oh my God, you need to move your feet." What was that? I want to leave you with a couple of things to churn in your mind, because I'm not just telling you stories for my own health. I want you to think about who your dad was, or is, or whoever you see as a father in your life. And I want you to consider, could you see a picture like this with your dad? My mom and my dad here are watching me sign my letter of intent to play volleyball in college. My mother there grinning, my father there grinning as well. And you can't tell, but we just had a conversation about how I'm going to have to buy new nail polish in the colors of my new team. Fatherhood and femininity are 2 things that are not opposite. They are intrinsically equal. Just because my father had a daughter didn't mean that he was going to be feminine. Of course he still wants to go hang out with my mom. My father has only sisters. Femininity was part of his identity, and he didn't have to be ashamed of that. And I ask, why do we think of our fathers as these big, macho, masculine heroes? Because they can be that, but they could also be soft and kind as well. Thank you.